I
Yep.
want to spend, oh, that's to inform everybody that Matt is recording this program. There's others who wish to hear what we said today. Give you thanks for this your church and all the many are to serve. Today we give you special thanks for a special group of servants who give of their time and talents as they seek to be clerks within their individual congregations. So help us, Lord, that we can help them to do what they need to do and do it to the best of all of our ability. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I'm aware that every year you all should have received a packet around the 1st of December. And we'll tell you something you really make sure you need to do in your church if you didn't receive the packet. But there's a packet that a lot of stuff goes out in. And amongst them is a letter from me telling you all, and Matt, I see his name's on here too, to do your General Assembly statistics. So I'm going to start with that. How many in this group, how many of the 7 of you have entered statistics before from a previous year? So I got 5 of you. All right, well, things haven't changed in the last year. They changed about 4 or 5 years ago. They revamped the whole thing and cut out lots of questions and made it incredibly easier. But the other thing that we found out when they changed the format, they made it almost impossible to find the instruction manual. There used to be a 32-page instruction manual that was right on the cover page. You could click on what language you wanted it, and you would get it in English or Korean or Spanish. And they took that away. And one of our clerks who just loves to go on hunting, Lori Schmidt, found it and told us at that time how and where to find it, because I hadn't found it yet. But anyhow, we have mailed that to you. You got it. You should have gotten it in the packet. And I mailed it out again as part of the attachments to this meeting, the welcome to this meeting. And there's just the 4 or 5 pages of instructions, but they're the instructions for the statistical data. When you go into the stats, click on the site right there on the online stat entry. It's OGA, PCUSA. It's right there on the letter we sent you. And if you click on that, it'll take you right in. You'll need your password, and you'll need the code of the church. And the code is simply a 5-digit PIN number. And if you're one of our older churches, Milan, you will have a 4-digit PIN. You put a 0 in front of it to make it 5. But anyway, we've got somebody coming on board, Matt. You need to go in, and you also need a password to go in at that point. Now, if you've been blessed with the password, it doesn't change unless you change it. And if you have not been blessed with the password, or you have lost the password, you call me. Because even if the clerk before you changed the password, I have a list of everyone's passwords up to date. That's one of the things I can print off. And this time of year, I keep it on my hard drive screen so I can help people get in if they can. And the original passwords had a capital I and a 1 embedded in passwords, and it was a nightmare because people would not get in because they used an I instead of a 1 or vice versa. But I think those have gotten cleared up over the years, and we're not using dot printers anymore, and it gets better. So anyhow, you need to go in. Your first page, of course, is just the address and phone number and the data, the name of the church. Should almost never change. The second page, of course, is your clerk's information. That would be your name, your email, and sometimes that changes. Sometimes the phone changes, but you can help that out by getting that in data. But then you go into the data entry. And there's a whole list of them, about 5 or 6, and you can go in and out of them at any time. But before you leave a page, you can just save it, just say enter it. You can still come back to it later and enter more. Even if you submit, you can come back, but you don't ever have to hit the submit button, ever, if you don't want to. Your data is in there if you just hit receive at the bottom of the page. And on membership, biggie is that you can, if those that are around a long time, you used to not agree necessarily with the number they gave you, they let you change it now and give a starting number, the gains that you've had with membership, the losses you've had, and that has to tally. That has to come out to an equal number at the end. And the list tries to describe the different members that come in. And you will have a lot more talk about that with Matt in a whole nother segment of this. But membership is probably, how do I say this very politely and nicely? One of the most important things you should do. Because I will get a call invariably later on in the year from some minister, clerk, or treasurer saying, you're billing us for too much per capita. That's not the number we submitted. And my answer is, yes, it is. So whatever number you submit as your final number for 2021 will be the per capita you pay numerically on as you begin the year 2023. And I can't change. I can change it if you call me up in a panic 2 weeks after February 15th. For 2 weeks, I can change it. But after it's locked in around the 1st of May, we're all done. And whatever's in there is what's in there for another year. And I can't.
And that's how Senate bills us, and that's how GA bills us too. So we cannot change it. Yeah.
No. And so anyhow, that's the membership. Then you have the entries on disability and all that, hearing and that. You say, well, how do we know? Well, take a wild guess. Count the number of people who wear glasses to the sanctuary. Of course, if they're wearing contact lenses, you probably won't do so well. But anyway, that do the best you can on that. Then there's the statistical data, and I have just got to tell you, there's one piece of data that I have no idea how you're going to do. I don't know how you did it last year, and I don't know how you're going to do it this year. And that is, how many of you know exactly your average attendance of worship during this past year? You really do. Have you been worshiping live?
We've been on Zoom a lot. We've been live, and generally we have about 35.
Okay, well, some have no idea because they're broadcasting on Facebook Live. And
well, we have that, but we have no idea, about that. But
well, that's my whole point. You do the best you can in all of these numbers. You do the best you can, and so you put that in. You put the stats in for Sunday school if you still are having one right now. The children's Sunday schools, some haven't started up yet, some have. We're living in a different time right now. So you do the numbers to the best of your ability. The last little part of this piece is the money end of it. It used to be a lot more complex than it is now. The top category is just all your income, investments, daycare, you were using it, rentals, people's giving, what all came in. What's your annual expense? What's your budget? What do you pay out? And then there's 3 categories they ask you to split out, even though you've already stated those numbers probably in an earlier spot. How much do you spend on mission? How much do you spend on the building? And how much do you spend on personnel? And that says a lot about our churches if you think about it and look at it. And there are some people who, especially if you're looking for a new minister to come, that will look to see what percentage of your budget is personnel and what percent is the building and what percent isn't mission. And I said it just the way I wanted to say it. You don't have to worry about me anymore. I'm so far retired, I won't be looking at your church to come. But ministers do look at those numbers, and they are important. So and mission is everything from the general mission you give to the Presbyterian, the Synod and GA, to supporting your local food pantry, to the cost you think of serving meals, we had a church that basically supported a daycare in their building, and that cost them more than they take in. We said we call that mission. It's what do you do that's not just paying for your worship and your people in your church? What's your outreach. So that's important to say. So I don't need to say any more about this. The big thing I need to say to you is that if you're having any difficulty getting in, call me on the phone. This time of year, I usually answer all phone calls, even if they are sales calls. Sorry about it. Sometimes I don't. Then leave a message. I'll get back to you. But the nice part, Chris Villaris has set this up so we can both go in at the same time. So if you're logging into your church site, I can also log in on my computer at the same time. We can both be in there and go from page to page, walking right through it together. So if it's new to you, I can help make that work. And that's part of my job. You are not bothering me, okay? Any real quick questions on stats? Then I
You
would like,
mentioned that we send the instructions, and because it's such a moving target, we don't. We just say that we're going to post it on the website. So I'm putting in the chat feature. If you need those instructions, of course, they were emailed to you as kind of one of your homework assignments for this.
yeah, you should
But
have
those
those right
instructions
now.
are always posted on the clerk's corner, whatever the new one is. And if a new one comes out about the time we're mailing those packets, see, that's why we don't want to mail it out.
But it came at this email. Let's just
Yeah.
pause here a moment. Linda and Crawford Strunk have joined us. Would you tell us what churches you're with?
Sure. I'm Linda Hoover. I'm with Fair Green Presbyterian Church in Toledo, Ohio.
Hi, Linda. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Good to be with you, Linda.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you a lot.
And I'm Crawford Strunk. I'm the clerk for FPC Maumee.
Oh, okay. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And Suzanne is having some kind of trouble. She's been in and out a couple times.
I'm still here. I'm listening.
All right. Well, welcome back. So anyhow,
I can
that's
see
all.
you.
That's what I wanted to spend on the stats for today. If you have more individual questions or trouble getting in, don't hesitate to call. The next thing you got in the December packet was what's called local church information form. This is for the presbytery. I want to separate. The one we just discussed is for General Assembly, and it goes into the statistics book. And I get a printout every year of every church in the whole country. And those numbers are reproduced line by line for every church in the entire country. But the local church information is done and used by our presbytery office. It has to do with mailings and emailings and stuff like that. So make sure if you have a new clerk that you tell the presbytery office, and if it's new for 2022, put that clerk's name and address and zip and email and all that good stuff in there. And then there's things like treasurer, mission, evangelism, stewardship, communication, nominating, youth, Christian ed, and worship. And some of you in the smaller churches I know are going to say, we don't have all those committees. We don't have a committee chair in every one of those. I'm getting a few nods from a few people. What you can do, if you want to be of help to your church and help to the presbytery, even if you don't have a mission evangelism committee, who in your local church is likely to read a mailing from the presbytery and tell the session about it? Who's the one person that you call the missional type person? And I know that small churches have that person. Or who's the one person that is involved with youth, if you have any? And you don't have to have a youth minister or youth director. Just who do you want the information to go to? People like treasurers, I'm sure you have. People like clerks, you better have. That's book of order mandated. But the others, just try to give us Christian ed. Who's the best one to make contact? Who's the best one if there's information about worship?
And a lot of folks are real hesitant about putting home addresses or those personal email addresses, but think about it. We're just using this internally. And like, the mission committee was looking for all the mission point people, or maybe I'm looking to send an email about special offerings to, the mission people and probably the clerks, because you all would know who handles the special offerings. So just give us what you have, and those are not hard and fast things there. I mean, we knew everybody had a treasurer, so we put that at the top. You may not have I'm sure you have a worship committee. But you may not have a Christian ed committee. Maybe you have a nurture committee, or I don't know what you call it at your church. But feel free to just cross them out, put in what you do have, and give us the leaders in the different groups that you have.
This is trying to be helpful. So if we come up with something unique and wonderful we think will help our member churches, we can send it out to all the churches to somebody who may read it.
Mhm.
And I know your minister and other people get so many emails and so many things across their desk, it's pretty hard to read it all. Just saying.
Yeah, and we're trying to make your job easier too, because if we sent everything to you and you spent your day, trying to farm out all the information to the right people, it get exhausting.
And then under the other page is your commissioners, and some people elect commissioners for the year. Some elect different ones at different times. But if you can name the commissioner for the year, or commissioners, we have them all meet with us. And the book of order says 0 to 500 is 1 commissioner, 500 to 1,000 is 2, and 1,000 to 1,500 is 3. But we modified that some years ago, and our presbytery has made it 0 to 299 is 1 commissioner, which is most of our churches. But we have a few with 300 to 599, and that would grant you 2 commissioners to attend and vote at presbytery meetings. Mommy, are you over 6? Oops,
Nope. Yeah, I'm on mute. Sorry. No, we're just about at 400 members right
yeah.
now.
So you would have 2 commissioners
Yeah.
on that sheet,
Yep.
if you wish, and alternates. But when they sign in, they usually sign in by church, not necessarily by name, because that's a list that's very hard for the office to keep up on. Especially, I don't know how many of you, you'll have a session meeting and say, who wants to attend the next presbytery meeting as our commissioner, and you vote that commissioner at that meeting. I'm getting a few nods around the group here. So they change, and we can't keep up, and we don't keep up with that to the best of our ability. All right, any questions on that form? Found out from last night groups that blessedly the General Assembly, I forget what group they were, I know the names of the people, they used to send you a whole nother class of information they wanted, everything from investments to ecumenical work to everything else. And what they did to me as the clerk was they would send that out to you all directly. Some of you took it seriously and filled it out. They then would tell me who the bad churches were who hadn't filled it out. And not only that, then I would call churches and say, you haven't done your stat report. And they'd say, well, we already did that report. They thought the thing they did for GA was my stat report. I'm happy to report, using that word one more time. They're evidently not doing that anymore. So you have 2 informational reports we want, the stats for GA and the people for the presbytery office. Okay.
Yeah, and Dean, I think enough of us GPs and stated clerks belly ached about when they were sending it. I said, if you just sent it in July, we wouldn't all get confused about this.
Yeah,
It's a survey.
They always sent it 2 weeks before the statistics came out.
Right.
We couldn't beat them. We could not beat them. So anyhow, moving right along. Just wanted to mention that, you do have minute reading. There used to be a lot more in person. I don't know what Lance is doing this year, but the checklist came out with you. Last night, groups mentioned that they sure wish they had the checklist a year ahead of time so they could use it as they did their minutes. And the answer to you is quite simply, they don't change that often. So take the year's checklist that you're going to look at last year's and use that same checklist as you look forward to the year we're in. And the checklist is to help you have accurate minutes and the things that the Book of Order thinks you should be doing. We don't cut anybody's volunteer pay in half if they do a bad job. No, it's really to be helpful. And lots of times with clerks back in the days, especially with presbytery, I do the same thing. I have to have my minutes read. What I find more important, especially when we meet in person, is to look at how the other person's doing things. And sometimes I pick up tips and information that help me do a better job with my own minutes. And so that's what it's about. And to that end, I sent you one other document. I didn't title it. Has a title on your computer screen. I think it was something like from one elder. The page has at the top, motion to authorize communion, the single page document. I don't send that to you for any reason except that when we were ministers at Monroe, our clerk there did this every year. And what he would do is ask polite, he wasn't even a member of session after the first 3 years, but as an elder, he stayed on as clerk, and he would ask politely, Madam Moderator of my wife or me, could I have a few minutes to go over my list? And we knew what it was. And he would go down this entire list, and we would make all these, we would pass all these motions. And this has to do with the corporations in Michigan and stuff like that. So I'm not even suggesting your list is the same as this list. I'm saying it might be helpful for you, your church, and your minister to have these things all approved near the beginning of the year. You will then see, you'll see that half of these, if not all of these, come out of the checklist that I just shared with you. And it was our way of making sure that when he had to make the report to the corporation of to the state of Michigan, he had all the right names and the trustees as the session had voted them. And he could show it in his minutes. So that's what John did. I offer that to you as a helpful thing. I do not offer it to you as something you're ordered to do. Certainly not. But I would hope that you would do something similar to that. Any questions about your minutes?
Yeah, I not to interject here, something I thought I was gonna bring up anyway. Last year we had after we had our minutes reviewed, we went and did it with one church. We had like a meeting and we discussed that minutes review. And we were to send something off and then get it back. Was there stuff done that way? Because I never got anything back.
That's funny. We heard the same thing from the group last night.
Okay.
And while we were meeting, Matt was texting Lance, telling him, oops, we missed that. So you, first of all, Melissa, you are correct.
Okay.
And it got overlooked, and we hope to do better this year. But
Okay.
yes, yeah, you are correct to raise that. And it was raised last night.
Yeah, there was going to be a one-page PDF summary of this because you weren't in person. We did it virtually, so you didn't get your minutes stamped. Instead,
Yes.
we were going to send you a PDF that you could include in your minutes that said, no exceptions or minutes were reviewed and approved by this person, and these were some suggestions, or whatever. That PDF may be forthcoming, or we might just have a water under the bridge one year, and then we'll have this next year. I don't know, but Lance is aware of it, and he's working on that. Sorry about that, y'all.
Okay, Sherry.
Are we gonna pair up with people again this year? I paired up with Peg Winslow from Fairgreen last year, and it was very helpful.
I think that's Lance's plan. So he's working on it right now, literally, as it's coming out within a week.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, and actually, I'm
Matt?
sorry, I cut somebody off. Who was saying?
I just was gonna say, that was gonna be my follow-up question. Was there information sent out about the minutes review? I know you sent the checklist, but I wasn't sure if there was something I missed about it.
No, the checklist came from me, and it was from a
Got it.
former year. You will get communications from Lance Weissman about Zoom gatherings or real gatherings, pairing up with people, all the stuff similar to what he did last year.
Yeah.
And he
Thank
is
you.
working on that.
That
you.
information has come out, and I just haven't sent it out yet because I didn't want to confuse you all with that gathering and those gatherings and then this one. So, but that link that I just shared where the instructions are, if you click that link, there's also at the very top the 3 Zoom options for that as well. And I think he talks a little bit there about pairing up. So that's what I'm going to cut and paste and send out to you all tomorrow. But if you want to put one of those 3 on your calendar, you can now.
Okay, thank
To be
you.
very clear, what we are doing right now has never been done before. No, this is the first time I've tried to do it, and I think we may do it again. We've just sent everything out and hoped it got done. And to that end, I think especially with the Zoom world we live in now, to spend 1 hour either in the evening or 1 hour in the afternoon without lots of transportation involved can work very well. And we were on one screen last night and we're on one screen today. So it works well. We're learning some things. We're not going back to everything just the way it was before. You know, COVID has taught us a few things that we can go forward in better ways, we hope. Now I want to talk about membership. And Matt's going to take over here in a minute. But I would like to tell you about 2 churches in our presbytery. Matt, I was way off on my number last night, so that we'll have to use this recording. But I am aware of 2 churches in the presbytery whose clerks, ministers, or whoever have been sending in pluses and minuses for years and coming up with a number of active members, which at a certain point, somebody looked at it and said, where are all these people? We don't know these people. We don't have that many. It would be like me having 800 on their rolls right now and the clerk saying, do we really? And so we went to Monroe. The clerk was not there. John was not the clerk at that time, but we knew their rolls were off significantly. And we thought, well, this will be easy. We'll just go through the minutes of 3, 4, 5 years. It doesn't take a long time to read minutes of membership. And we'll reconstruct the rolls from the minutes of the session meetings. And lo and behold, within a short amount of time, we found a session meeting where the minutes read, removed 65 people from the roll. I just gave you the entire clip from those minutes. There were no names listed, nothing.
No names.
No names.
Oh boy.
60. I'm sure the people sitting around the table, the elders, had a piece of paper that had 65 names on them, but the clerk never entered those names into the minutes. Probably thought, oh, that's going to take too much room. I don't know. We have another church that will go unnamed, but is going through the same kind of mess. And so I strongly encourage you as clerks to do your stats that we talked about at the beginning, you know, the gains, the losses, and all that. But, you know, if you say you've got 138 members on the roll, do you? If you say you have 500, 400 members on the roll at Maumee, has somebody looked that up lately?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not picking on Maumee. Believe me.
No, I know.
No. And you are not the other church, by the way.
I know. We're sticklers about it.
Good. There's nothing wrong with
So,
that.
we actually, I was going to say, you mentioned the 65 people that were removed. We actually had a year where we removed 63, and it took 2 columns, and we put everybody in that list and said, as part of our minutes.
But their names were in the minutes.
Absolutely.
Of course they.
Absolutely.
Okay. And thank you. But I just, you say it can't happen. It does. It really does. So anyway, with that in mind, we're going to have Matt, turn it over to Matt here to talk about roles and something else. Oops, we got a question here for Sherry.
Just that one question. Can you talk a little bit about this necrology report? Exactly who do you want on there?
All right. I tell you what, I'm going to let Matt include that in his time.
Okay.
And by the time he's done talking, you'll know why I just did that.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that you all are keeping track of the deaths that are happening in your congregation, the members that die and then get removed from the rolls. But in terms of the necrology, all we want is the ruling elders that have died. And that is one of the required registries that you keep, you know, ruling elders and deacons. And so you should have a list of all those people who have been ordained and then maybe who die during last year. And so the necrology report is from January 1st to December 31st, who are the ruling elders, or if you had ministers in your congregation that have been worshiping, you might want to just put those on our radar
So it's
screen.
not somebody who died and they were an elder 10 years ago.
Yes.
Elder
Yes.
for life.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
an elder for life. Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Did
So, I'm sorry.
Just have a great number of people who died in their church, because we've had over 10.
That sounds pretty normative. Yeah,
In 1 year.
that can
Can
happen.
be.
We're a very small church, Sherry, and we had 3 this last year, which is more than we've ever had on a necrology report ever.
Well, I'm going to talk with you a little bit about roles and registers. And I've been working with clerks, not nearly as long as Dean has, but I've been working with clerks long enough to know that this is often the biggest place where there's room for growth, room for some correction. So I hope this time is something where you have something that you take away from this, something that you've learned, something that you may think about. And I'm going to share some examples, but just think of them as one way to do it. This is not an just something that's across the board or that you have to do it this way. But let's talk just a little bit. So first of all, the Book of Order lays out these roles and registers that you need to keep. And how good is your memory? Well, of course, one of the things that Dean sent out for your homework was listing those 4 categories of membership. What are some of the, well, first of all, I was going to say, what are the 4 basic roles that you keep? But let's back up. What's the difference between roles and registers? Or is there no difference in your mind? The group last night, I'm not sure they really had an idea either, so that's okay. Roles and registers, what do you know? What do you think?
I would think they're the same.
So, and I think they're quite different, because I think of roles as living, breathing documents. Roles are things that are always changing, right? The role at Maumee may actually have changed today. If someone died, the role has changed, right? The register doesn't change very often. The register is just a chronological, it's a static thing. It sits there for life, right? The register is just a chronological list of, and it's mainly this, right? It's all this stuff. How many of you all keep one of these big books? Or have you retired? Okay, so most of you are still keeping one of these. This has a lot of registers in it. So there's a register of baptisms. There's a register of installed pastors. There's a register of just about anything that you can think of, right? Trustees, deacons, this one has, affiliate members, marriages, that's a good one. I hope you have a register of marriages. Why are these roles and registers important? Well, often the roles become important when folks sit down with per capita numbers, right? Then all of a sudden the role becomes real important. Well, I would offer to you that there are a lot more heartfelt reasons for me to keep a role up to date. It can be the greatest gift to the next pastor, right? If your role is clean, and not just, I showed up at church and I picked up the pictorial directory and it was like 10 years old, right? And it looked like, and that was the best they had in terms of a role. So it was almost like we had 200 members, but half of them had died or left or weren't there anymore. And I couldn't figure out who the members were. It took me 6 months to figure out who was a visitor and who was a member for life and who had been a member for 6 months. So it's a great gift. And more than that, a role tells you a lot. It tells you a lot about who you are and who you have been and where you're going as a church. Why would you not want to keep up with this, right? You want to know who your family is and you want to keep up with your family. So you all are so much more than just clerks, by the way. You realize that. You're amazing people. You keep minutes, this is true, and I bet you take good minutes, but you are also the archivists, you're the historians, you're giving the church a gift of its past, of its present, and I would argue with some of what I just said, its future, right? It's giving up-to-date roles to the next pastor provides an opportunity for that person to really jump in there and get to know their people pretty quickly and pretty well. So talk with me about the different roles that we have. What are the 4 basic roles that the Book of Order says that you have to maintain? Remember, these are the living, breathing documents. What are the 4 roles?
Baptized member, active member, affiliate member, and other participants.
Right. And the first question a lot of people say is, where'd the inactive role go? That was one of the changes in the Book of Order, and I think it's a pretty wise change. Because inactive member doesn't tell me very much. Other participants is sort of the catch-all. And I think you could, if you keep how many of you still keep an inactive member role? Some of you, no. A couple of you still do keep an inactive member role, and you can do that. You can keep more, you can do more than the Book of Order requires. You just can't do less, So tell me the difference between, so let me finish that thought. The other participant role, I think, is a better catch-all because it can include the inactive members and others. And there's a whole lot of others that are there. Let me just share my screen, and I think we can get to some of this more quickly if I just share this. Okay, so, whoops, I moved away from it. You all can see my whole screen, right?
Yeah.
And I am going to Clerk, sorry, Clerk Gathering. Okay, so I was the pastor of a church and I showed up. It was very difficult to figure out who was who. And what we came up with was just, and this was a church of about 80 members, right? 60, 70, 80 members or so. And what we came up with was simple thing. This was easy to pass around. This was easy for people to understand, email us to talk back and forth, put in a Dropbox. We just had 4 Word documents. And look at this. This is the active role. It's just a list of names, right? And then if Sue Beal dies, we just delete her off and we report that at the next meeting. And this was a great, right? See, her are 60 people, just a list of names. Now I would argue, we could go a little bit further. I would like this to match up with the register as well. And so I would like to put like a membership number, right? Maybe Anna she was the 579th person to join the church, right? And so you put her in the register, right? Maybe this is in the big book and you put her as the 579th person that joined, but then you want this to match up somewhere so you know where to go back and look. Maybe Bob Bentley was, the 1046th or something, right? So you could put in different numbers there. That would make it more complete. But it is a role, right? Here's the baptized role. Wait a minute, there's only 2 people. And these are 2 youth. These are 2 youth that have not been confirmed yet, right? And this is the big confusion, right? What's the difference between a baptized registry and a baptized role? Somebody jump in and tell me. What's the difference between a baptism registry and a baptized role? Okay, well, I'll jump in and help that. So Melissa at Milan. Hey, Donna, you have a television going in the background?
I'm sorry.
Were you gonna jump in and answer, Donna? Okay, so I'll just use the example of Thomas Edison, right? Melissa, Thomas Edison was baptized at your church, right?
Yeah.
Back in, do you know what year?
Gosh, no. Long time ago.
So Thomas Edison is going to appear on your baptism registry,
Mhm.
right? Because there was a date, there was a time, there was a place. He's going to appear in this book. Now, you may have already sent it off. You may have sent those pages off to the Presbyterian Historical Society. You may not have them, but arguably you would have. Thomas Edison is on your baptism registry, but he's not on your roll. The roll is a living, breathing document, right? And it's those people in your church who have been baptized, but who have not yet made a profession of faith. So they're not yet active members. And that doesn't always have to be children, right? We had a husband and wife team, and the wife she was on session, and she was a key leader in that church. And her husband was baptized as an infant, as a Roman Catholic. He had never joined as an active member. So would we keep him on other participant lists, or would we keep him on the baptism roll? Well, you could have made an argument to keep him on the baptized roll. So he's a baptized Christian, but he's not a member. He's not an active member here. Now, we actually kept him on the other participant list. But there was another husband and wife team where
He wasn't baptized at the church though, right? You said he was baptized Roman
Right.
Catholic. So why would you have him on a baptism roll?
good question, right? But if you have children in your church, but none of them were baptized there, they're
Yes.
we still want to keep track of them, right? So they would be on the baptized roll. So Thomas Edison was on the registry, but not the roll. But if we had
Yeah.
children who were baptized, even if it wasn't there, we'd still have them on our baptized roll because their parents are members.
Okay.
Make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, if
So,
I may point out,
yeah, go ahead.
Melissa, that is probably one of the most overlooked class of people on our rolls, period.
Right.
That when you get a new family joins the church, it is appropriate to ask, have your children been baptized? And if they have been and not yet confirmed, they should be entered onto that roll. So you keep track of them and encourage them to be confirmed at a later time. But
Right.
it's probably one of the most, and same thing with elders. That came up last night. Somebody could come to your church from another Presbyterian church, and they would be on the roll, could be easily on the roll of elders if they were ordained an elder at another church.
Yeah. And I would say something's better than nothing, right? It's like minutes, you know, something is better than nothing when it comes to minutes. Well, something's better than nothing if it comes to a baptized roll as well. Let me open up my other participant list just so you guys can see how this is a living, breathing document. It does not need to be hard and fast. This was just, you can kind of see, this is the clerk's brain. And she's putting some details down and we're doing our best, right? So you see number 3, Marshall Hawkins, whoever that is, you guys don't know who these people are, right? But this person had been baptized and confirmed at FPC Duncan. So at some point, he was an active member. He was on the active member roll. Now he was attending Life Church in Edmond. And well, the question was, he may want to remain in membership here. He had long since been removed as an active member. But this is, you know, and this happens, doesn't it, right? Our emotions get involved. And, you know, mom says, hey, we want to keep our son on the roll. Yeah, but he's not an active member and we cleaned him off in 81 or whatever. But we want to keep track of him and maybe we end up moving him back to the active role. Look at here's my, you know, somebody on the list. Here I am. We want to keep track of me, but why am I not on the active member role? Why am I not on the active member role?
Because you're not allowed to be.
Right, I'm a member of Presbytery. I'm not a member of the local church.
Yeah.
So that's a good example where you'd want to keep track of me or my spouse or probably both, right? And maybe my spouse is a member, but I'm certainly not. Well, you still want to send me a newsletter, don't you? You know, this kind of thing. This was the greatest gift to the next pastor. Because look at this. What you get is, hey, look at this. We've got somebody who worships with us who may or may not be baptized. Do I need to follow up with their grandfather and see if they're baptized? Maybe we've got somebody like this, Chris Zimmerman. He's a lifelong Presbyterian, but he's not a member of FPC Duncan. Well, why is that? He's been worshiping here for 20 years. And well, that's a conversation that the new pastor can have with Chris Zimmerman, right? Then we've got some people like this. I bet you have some in your congregation. They were removed. Now they're back. They're worshiping. And they may think they're members, right? So the question is, do we invite them to a new member class, or do we just quietly restore them to the member role? That's something that maybe the clerk and the pastor, you all have a conversation about that. Those kinds of things. Anyway, affiliate members, we don't do this much anymore, but what's an example of why you would be an affiliate member? Anybody have any of those? They're pretty rare. Dean, what's an example of why you'd be an affiliate member?
I would suggest that an affiliate membership, it particularly has been in roles involved with snowbirds. People who are nowadays 6 months in Florida and 6 months up north, or even 7 and 5, and they will declare that both Presbyterian churches are involved, and one will be their church of membership, and the other church will be a church that they are affiliated with the other 5 months of the year, and they will only be able to hold and vote and be active elder or deacon at one or the other of the 2 churches. That would be one example.
Right, and that's the key piece, is the affiliate member, they have all the rights and responsibilities of a member except to vote and hold office, which is pretty key, you know? And, oh, you're muted, Dean. Oh, you might be talking to his wife. But yeah, so the most popular reason for an affiliate member, I think historically, has been military people, right? And so they want to stay with their home parish that they grew up in or whatever, and they don't want to keep changing membership every time they get deployed or moved or this, that, and the other. So you definitely, you see what I'm talking about though, right? You want to keep up with these people. You want to have them as a part of your family, but in an appropriate way. And it's hard sometimes to, it can be the fight of a lifetime, right? To decide what makes an active member, who should be on that list, who shouldn't. Emotions get involved, right? And emotions get involved, I think, of taking care of our role. But they do have per capita implications, and they have other implications as well. And it can be difficult to remove somebody from the role, but often that's the wisest thing to do, because you want to accurately reflect who you are. Any thoughts on that? Questions?
So just a question, registry for baptized, are those people who are actually baptized in your church? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the baptism registry is that which the session has authorized. And there are a number of registers in the Book of Order that are required for you to maintain. And one of them is the baptisms that the session authorizes. So those would be baptisms that either happen in your sanctuary or down by the river, right? But they're ones that your pastor is going to be presiding at, or someone else that the session has authorized. Any other questions about that? And let me do, since we have a couple minutes then, let me just do another share of the screen, and I will just kind of briefly walk you through the roles and registers that are part of the Presbyterian Church. And again, you may have more. The session can say, I want you to keep more of these. We talked a little bit about why it's important, right? It's a gift to the interim pastor. It tells us who we are. It tells us about our past, our present, and our future. So here are the 4 basic roles that you maintain. And you saw them already, right? The active member role. And there are 3 ways that you join the active member role. You make a profession of faith, you have a certificate of transfer, you have reaffirmation of faith, and you deal with all those as a clerk. Then there's the baptized member role, right? A person who has been baptized but not yet made a profession of faith. So that role is basically exists to then usher you into active membership, right? You're generally moving from one role to the next. That third was the affiliate member. We talked about that. And then this
Excuse me, Matt.
catch-all. I'm sorry?
Excuse me, if you're sharing your screen, but the screen's not changing. So I don't know if you're showing us examples but it's a PowerPoint and it just says church rolls and registers, but it hasn't changed.
Is that the same for the rest of you?
Yes. Yes.
It's not changing?
No,
Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, let me try to share the screen in a different way then. I'll just share the screen. Can you see this?
yes,
Basic church roles.
Okay. Basic church roles. You see this now?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is what we missed, was the roles and registers. And then I had the why it was important. Past, present, future, and then here are the 4 roles: active member, profession of faith, certificate transfer, reaffirmation of faith. Baptized member, affiliate member. Thanks for jumping in and saying that, whoever that was. Was that Phil? And here's this other participant list. And, you know, what are some examples of other participants that would show up? We mentioned a few of them. Just call them out. What are some people that would be types of people that would be on this list?
Friends of the church, they participate or are regular attendees.
Right,
But-
regular attenders who have not joined. A lot of the times I think that's a spouse, you know, the spouse is a Roman Catholic, or the spouse grew up Lutheran, never joined. We had me on the list, right? So you can have maybe ministers that are connected with your church. You guys have a bunch of those at First Mommy, right? There's some retired Presbyterian ministers that attend. You're wanting to, they'll be on this other participant list. What other people might be on there?
So are these like friends of the church?
It could be.
And do we have to pay apportionment for these people?
No, and that's the deal, right? You only pay, you can keep all these, you can consider all this your membership role if you want, but the only ones you pay per capita on is the active member role.
Okay.
You're not paying per capita on the children. You're not paying per capita on me, even though you're keeping track of me, that kind of stuff. And membership does matter. And this is where, and I usually include the inactive members in this other participant role. I don't want to drop them completely. I still want them on the e-blast list or the newsletter list or whatever. I want to keep track of these people and hopefully usher them back into active membership. But I don't want separate roles. There are too many roles. And I just like this catch-all, Here are the registers that are required. Baptisms that are approved by the session. Ruling elders and deacons. So every year when you ordain people, you're going to put those into the register. And again, that's a chronological list. You can keep those as Word documents or Excel spreadsheets as well. And some of the larger churches, they have software that manages all these different kinds of registers and roles. But you can keep it by hand, right? You can keep it in this book and just handwrite each one of those in. But don't do what I call clerk graffiti. Don't start crossing things out in the register, right? Well, that person died, so now we're going to cross them off the baptism registry. No. You did actually baptize them back in 1973. Just because they died doesn't mean you cross them out, okay? So the register baptisms, ruling elders, installed pastors with dates of service. I think that one is so silly. I want to keep track of all the pastors, but whatever. And then other registers the session may deem necessary. And I would encourage you to keep a wedding register as well. A lot of people do not know that you don't have to do this big book anymore. You can do things electronically, but you must always have a printed copy. So if you keep things electronically, then press the print button every December 31st so that the roll appears in the church office somewhere, or that the all these registers are somewhere in some 3-ring binder. And I encourage people to send, and Chris Valerius encourages them, you all to send stuff that's 5 years old or more to the Presbyterian Historical Society. A lot of people don't want to let go of that, and that's fine. But I would draw a line in the sand. You know, maybe 1950 or before, or 1980 or before. Hey, I'm going to let go of those minutes, or those registers, or those rolls. Remember, you know, you may have a file folder that's, or, you know, a file cabinet that's fireproof. Yeah, guess what? It's not flood proof. I've seen a lot of stuff disappear and get destroyed by fires, by floods. And once it's gone forever. The history of your church would be wiped out, right? So send some of the Presbyterian Historical Society. That will preserve your history. We have a hand raised, sorry. FPC Monroe.
Yes, I was wondering though, if you send it to the Historical Society, how are they about getting it back to you?
Well, they will never let go of it. But if you as the clerk need that information, you can request it and they will provide facsimile copies of whatever you ask for. Hey, I need the minutes from 1971 to 1974. We're trying to track something down. And they will mail you back a copy of those minutes.
Well, the big thing is we've got minutes going back to the 1800s. I'd like to be able to, and we got a lot of historically minded people in town and in a congregation that are leery of letting go of it.
Yeah, and I would be leery of keeping it, because again, if you lose it, if the whole place burns down, then it's gone. They keep it in a temperature controlled, safe environment. They're big. They're big, second only to the, what's the big federal archive one? I can't remember.
The Library of
The
Congress.
Library of
Library of
Congress.
Congress. They're second only to the Library of Congress. And again, you can get copies of those back, or you can make copies of it before you let it go. But I would send them the originals. Anyway, our time is fleeting. Dean, I'll pass it back to you.
Well, I'll say something that Matt said last night at the end. I said at the beginning, and I'll say it one more time. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. It just is so important that each of you do your job. Each one does their job at each church where you are. And as I say, we are here to help you. I answer my phone. I enjoy answering questions of either from you and or your pastors. And sometimes it's not always black and white. There are gray areas of answers. And I'll say something about Matt and myself. We work well together. If it's a complicated question, more than likely, I will say to you, I will get back to you. And I will call Matt, and he will do the same thing, and he'll call me. Because you won't get two different answers from Matt and me. You'll get one answer that we don't always agree. But by the time we're done talking, there will be one answer. And it's not always mine or his. We believe in working things through. But anyhow, thanks a lot. I hope you learned a few things. I hope you found the time, at least an hour of your life, valuable. I think we may do this again. And good luck on getting your statistics done. 7 of you have already got them in. I can look and see who have entered statistics and who have not. Yep. I have access to all that wonderful stuff, but so
And
just,
if you need help, you've just met a bunch of fellow clerks, but you can also call me or Dean, and we could do a Zoom call and share a screen and walk you through step by step, if you're new to this.
any last passing comment before I ask Max to dismiss us with prayer?
I have a question. Do we have to get those statistics okayed by session, approved by session?
They are to be approved by session, and I'll tell you why. Remember the one church that I said was a disaster because the numbers were so far off? The
Yes.
minister had been doing it for years without clearing it with the session.
Okay,
But get them in, even if the session is going to meet the week after February 15th.
all right, thank
You
you.
know, and
Yeah,
there's a
and-
print button right at the beginning. You can hit a PDF that after
Mhm.
you've put all your stats in there, just hit that PDF and it'll pop up on your screen, and you will be able to print that off and have the session approved piece of paper.
Okay,
and what's
thank you.
on it.
And I would encourage you to input those numbers prior to the session approving it, right? Put it in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because then you
get
can
'em
make
in.
that PDF. We can always go back and change, correct. If the session for some reason disagrees with one of those numbers, then you can go back. That's why you don't click that submit button, right? But I would just enter the data. And if you miss the deadline and the session approves, Dean may have an opportunity to correct it too.
But I've got to have that membership corrected by March 1st. That's my deadline.
Mhm.
You have to have it done by February 15, 16. And somewhere around the 18th of February, you'll call me up and say, they won't let me in anymore. And I'll say, you're right.
Yep.
Yes,
Matt,
Well, let us
Matt,
close
you
in prayer.
dismiss this prayer.
Lord God, we thank you for the gift of one another. We thank you that each of us is a grain of wheat and that we all have come together into one loaf, into the body of Christ. We thank you for feeding us in this time with your Spirit. Feed us as we go out from this place with the gift of one another, inspired by the Holy Spirit wherever we go. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks
Thank you.
again for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So-